In today's video, we're checking out GoPower's 60 amp solar controller, which will be installing this into my 29G Momentum toy hauler trailer, and we'll also go over some of the features and functions of this unit. And also thanks for eTrailer for sending this unit out so we can test it and install it, and I have links in the description below. After getting this out of the box, this is what you'll find is a manual and also an easy step installation guide card, which I'll show you that in a minute. We have a temperature sensor and also some communication wires. Now we'll get this out of the box and go through what's left, which we also have a couple other goodies that we're going to install, like this Bluetooth monitor that you can actually hook up to the unit as well. They sent this out so we could try this along with the phone app, which we'll go over that in just a minute or two as well. So let's go ahead and go over some of the other features. But first, you do want to read these manuals because there's a lot of good information. I really never do read these things. I just kind of toss them to the side so we can just get going. As we go over the indicator lights, you'll see that you have a solar panel up on top, a battery down below that, and then also a load light. When these lights are on, that means that the system is working, except for that warning light. If that happens to be on, you'll want to check your system. As we move down, you'll see that you have some select buttons so you can move around the display, and some information down here like maximum solar voltage that you can bring in, which is 150 volts, and a max charging current of 60 amps for this unit. As we take a look at our wire terminations and wire routing, this is where the temp sensor goes. Along with your solar system, this is where it'll plug into the positive and negative, your battery, and also your load, which this is one thing I thought that was a little odd, is that you have your battery negative there and battery positive there, and load positive and negative kind of separated away from each other. I would have liked to seen these together just to kind of keep the wiring a little bit more together as far as wire sets, but maybe they can fix that on an upcoming model later down the road. But if you take a look over here, this is where we will have the Bluetooth remote wire come out, which will be on the side there. And now we'll go ahead and pop off this panel. Now this only takes just a Phillips screwdriver, really small one. So we'll go ahead and unspin these screws, and then we'll go ahead and remove the cap real quick. And with my super fast hands, I can have this done in just a jiffy, and away we go. Now we can remove the cap, put it to the side, and now you can see all your termination terminals, which these use brass lugs, which is nice. And these are actually a decent size that look like they'll be able to hold down the wires just fine. Some of these are actually pretty small on some of the solar controllers, which allows you to only use a really small wire, like maybe only up to an 8 gauge max, which I believe this one is rated for a 6 gauge. I'll have to double check the instructions, but our temperature terminal is there. We have a battery sampling lead as well, which I don't have that, and I don't have the communication cables, but that's where the Bluetooth monitor will hook up right there, which that's our Bluetooth dongle, and we'll go ahead and plug that in later after we get the unit installed. And again, this is another shot at looking at the wire termination points so you can just kind of get an idea what that looks like. All right, now that we've done a quick walkthrough through this unit, we'll go ahead and get this outside and install it. All right, so this is my Grand Design Momentum 29G. Inside this front cabinet, right over there in the corner is where I'm going to put this. I have just enough room, and don't mind this area. It is under construction as I reroute everything, and I'm still working on some of the wiring and finish things up, so excuse me on that. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that the trailer is level, so get yourself a level. That way when you have the unit installed, it's sitting nice and level. That way aesthetically it looks pleasing. It matches whatever else you have in the compartment, like batteries or whatever else you might have installed. So you can see here the bubble is pretty much in the middle. I'm going to change the trailer, and now you take a look, it's pretty much dead center. So, and whenever you guys are working around electrical, you should disconnect everything, or at least cover it up with a towel or something to prevent sparks, basically. I found this piece of metal, which this will actually work good. We'll just kind of cover that up real quick. Really? So obviously you don't want to use any kind of metal, but we'll get going again. So make sure when you are measuring and leveling things out for your template, you want to measure off of the holes. So get your level and level off of the holes and not the top part where the blue tape is, because if that cut isn't straight from the factory, then you won't know it's level. You want to level where the screws are going to go. So mark those out with a pencil after you get those holes level. So I borrowed my daughter's favorite heart pencil, so thanks for her for sponsoring this video as well. And we'll continue on marking out our holes. And then whenever you are drilling into something, you want to make sure you know what's on the other side. I've already been on the other side of this wall several times, so I'm going to go ahead and drill out all 4 of my holes, and then we can move on to putting the screws in. So all 4 holes are drilled. Now we'll go ahead and place the screws in. And now whenever you guys are using a drill and you're using screws in an RV trailer, you really should use the clutch, because that way you don't drive the screws all the way in and strip things right away, because you guys know how thin the wood is. It's super thin and you end up stripping stuff all the way. But for this particular one, this wood is actually thick, so I turn the clutch up a little bit. Okay, so you leave the screws just a little bit proud, and then boom, you just slide it on. And I actually got really lucky. It actually fit right on there really good. I didn't have to modify anything. So now I got to do a little bit of wiring. And when you do install this, according to the manual, you want 6 inches of clearance up above. I have about 5.5 plus a little bit beyond that plate. So I'm a little bit shy of it, but I am going to be adding a thermostatic fan in here that's going to connect to that vent, which that right there actually goes right to the outside, as you can see. So now if this does get warm in here, I can actually vent this area a little bit and move it, or just open the door. All right, so I've already got the connections made to the battery. So I have the battery terminal going over there to that side. I still need to add an actual shutoff switch for later, but you can see my red wire goes down here to a thermal switch, and these are great. I repurposed that from my trailer. I took it from the outside and put it inside, and those are awesome because they're super simple. If they get too hot and that unit happens to fail, that thermal switch will go first, protecting my batteries. Even though these SOK batteries, these are really good batteries, they do have an onboard BMS, which it will shut off for overcurrent protection as well. And these are the ones that are not Bluetooth and heated, but SOK has Bluetooth and heated batteries, and I'll have links in my description about those as well if you want to check some of those out. But I also have this little switch as well, which my solar wire comes down from here from the roof and goes into this little disconnect that I can manually press and disconnect the power going to the solar charge controller, basically. So while I'm working on it or servicing it, I can disconnect it real quick, and then when I want to add it, I can just have it plugged in, flip the switch, and it'll turn it on. Okay, so I hooked up the rest of the wiring, and I hooked up the temp sensor and the Bluetooth module, which I'll focus this real quick and show you, but you can see it just coming out over there, and I have it resting on my batteries. That's not where it's going to live, but I'll find a place for it somewhere kind of close to them. That way I can monitor the battery temperature, because lithiums, they don't like being cold. But there's a Bluetooth module, which I'll find a place for that pretty soon, so probably going to put it, well, maybe up in this location here, so it's a little bit farther away from all the batteries and the wiring, and try to get the least amount of interference. But we'll test it out in a second. And now we'll go ahead and flip the switch on this breaker, and then you guys can see that the power should come on, and there it goes. So I have a 300 watt panel currently on my roof of the RV, and you can see the 2 lights are on up there, and you can see now we have some voltage coming in, about 187 watts, and it is in the morning, so the sun is still kind of at an angle and low. I might even have part of a tree in the way, but you can see voltage and amperage already coming in. But this is also not set up, so we're going to disconnect that, and we're going to change the settings on this to a lithium battery instead of sealed. Okay, so we'll run through a few of the features here, and if you press the right arrow, this kind of takes you through one menu: battery voltage, and then photovoltaic voltage, which is nothing at the moment, and then a load chart, I guess. And then let's see, our device temp of the 11 cc's, which I'm going to see if I can change that to Fahrenheit later, and some other information here. But we'll go back to the main menu, press a couple of these buttons, and now, so let's see this button. I played with this for a few seconds before I did the video, but I still got to learn it. So now, let me go back. Okay, so here we go. So this will take us to our load switch on and off, which you can control all this from your cell phone eventually. But now we have our settings. You can see sealed lead acid battery, and then it has kind of some parameters already set. So we do have a 12-volt system and a sealed lead acid battery, and then capacity is 200 amp hours, which we will change that. So let's go ahead and press the down arrow and right button to select, and now it said sealed lead acid. So we're that's flooded and user parameters, which I'll use that later when I figure out the parameters of these lithium batteries, which I'll just select that for now. But you also have gel batteries, and then back to sealed lead acid and flooded. So I'm going to just select that for now, and then I'll come back to the user settings and set everything up, like my capacity and all that, for the actual batteries that I have. And so I'm going to bring this up to 412 amp hours, which it looks like it goes by 5. So then we're going to set our capacity to about 410, which will be under the 412 that I have, because these batteries are 206 amp hours each, giving me a total of 412. So we'll just set that there. The address, not exactly sure what that does. I'll have to figure that out later. And that kind of gets us through a basic setup and some parameters for your charge voltage, your boost voltage, and everything else. Here's some analysis readings and also a history log, which I looked through here just real quick, and there's a lot of information on there. So now we can go ahead and turn our breaker back on. So we'll flip this up, And now we should be able to see, I'll get the camera back over here because it is a little tight in here with all the stuff, but now we can take a peek. 28.5 volts and 192 watts. And I think I'll have to change my battery perimeters, but it says I have 13.4 volts currently, which is the batteries were already pretty charged, 192 watts. We're going to check our voltage right there. So I'm going to plug into the top part of that breaker where the actual solar comes in. And now if we take a look at the meter, we're at about 28.1 on the volts, and at the actual controller, we're right at 28 volts. And we take a look at the device temp, still at 12 cc's, 193 watts. And a couple other things that I think will change later. I don't know if I can change those parameters actually. That's just info, but you can see our charging current right now is 13.6 and still 13.5 on the voltage of the battery. So for the most part, that actually all displays right here, which is kind of nice, and on the app. So we'll take a look at that here in just a second. Okay, so the Bluetooth dongle, we're going to take a look at the power draw on this unit real quick. So if you look at the instructions here, I'll get this in focus for you guys. While this is on standby, it only uses 0.04 watts. And then when it's actually transmitting, it's only using 0.05 watts. So the draw of the power of this is actually pretty minimal. So we'll go ahead and download the app, which you can see there, it's a solar app. And now that I have this downloaded, I actually hooked this up super quick, and I kind of did it so quick I didn't get it on camera, but I will kind of show you there. You can already see the voltage and the current coming in, and you just go down here to device info on the bottom side and you say search device, and it'll come up, and you just press select, and then boom, that's it. Okay, so now a distance test. I'm about 65 feet away, give or take, and this is where the unit was actually working perfectly. If I go a few feet away, then it gets a little bit spotty. And so that's where I ended up putting the Bluetooth dongle with some double-sided tape, so that was easy. And then I still have to put the temp sensor somewhere. I'll figure that out after I do a little bit more wiring inside the compartment and figure out a good place for that, because I still have some cleanup to do. But let me know what you think about this solar controller down in the comments down below, and be sure to smash that like button for me and subscribe. And until then, I hope to see you guys next time.